All right, so it is officially day one of the aftermath of that blockbuster trade between the Timberwolves and the Knicks that sent Julius Randle over to Minnesota alongside with Donte Divincenzo and sent Karl Anthony Towns over to New York. So we've all had our initial reactions and thoughts to it. I myself did a video late last night reacting to the trade. Now things have kind of settled just a bit, and we do have some rumors coming out, one of which is very depressing. And to be honest, I don't know the exact truth behind it. It's one of those things where people are talking about it and they're saying it, but the truth about those claims are kind of up in the air. But allegedly, Donte Divincenzo wasn't really happy with what his newer role with the Knicks was going to be. Again, this is alleged. I don't know if this is the truth, but I'm just going to react to these alleged rumors and these talking points and everything that have been coming out on Twitter and everything like that in the last couple of days. It's rough to see that because we as fans really wanted to see those guys work together. Like the Nova Knicks, that storyline was so dope, and that dynamic is still there. There's still Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson, and Bridges there, but having DiVincenzo there would have made it that much more cool. And there was this chemistry that they had with one another because obviously those guys competed at a high level together in Villanova. Knowing that there was like an issue with one of them regarding their new role on the team was kind of rough to see because that whole hype around them was based around the chemistry that they had. And I'm not saying DiVincenzo was like beefing with Bridges, Brunson, and those guys, but still the fact that somebody was dissatisfied with their role was kind of rough for a team that I thought was going to be so in tandem with one another with the chemistry and everything. Kind of rough to see. And that was kind of plaguing the Knicks in general. Like outside of DiVincenzo, there was also this idea that Julius Randle wasn't going to be happy with his new role on the team with Bridges being added to the roster. So it does look like there was a lot more internal conflict in New York than a lot of us thought, right? I thought most of it, as I said, was coming from Randle, but to know there was some dissatisfaction coming also from Donte DiVincenzo, it's very interesting. And both of those guys are now out of New York and into a different situation. And I can understand DiVincenzo's disappointment with playing a smaller role, right? I mean, there's an aspect to the NBA where, yes, you want to play for your team and everything, but there's also your individual performance, right? And you may feel like you're on a certain path and your momentum is going a certain way, and it's rough to kind of see that momentum get stunted a bit. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. DiVincenzo's role was going to be minimized with Bridges coming here to the team, and probably he was going to be coming off the bench. And that's rough because he is coming off of the best season of his career. He averaged nearly 60 points a game. He was amazing for this team in the playoffs. He was kind of thrust into a higher role in the offense during the playoffs, especially with Julius Randle being out for that extended period of time. That not just the playoffs, but also during the regular season. So he showed that he can be a reliable scoring option. And for him to know that he could get to that level and play at that level for a really good team, just to kind of come back in the next season and have his role diminished to coming off the bench again, which is kind of a role he generally played throughout his career up to this point in time. It's kind of rough. Like it did feel like with DiVincenzo, he kind of knew this could be my home, right? This could be an opportunity for me to be a pretty high priority or relatively high priority compared to the other teams I've been on a team's offense. And like I said, for him to come back this season and know that he's probably going to come off the bench and play a much smaller, important still, but much smaller role, I can understand the disappointment. I don't think that's selfish. I can see the disappointment, seeing the trajectory he's been on, seeing his momentum, and all of those things. And there's a world where here in Minnesota, it could pretty much be the same thing. He's not going to be a super high priority within that Timberwolves offense. There's Anthony Edwards. There's also Jaden McDaniels, who's going to continue to grow from an offensive standpoint. And I definitely think with Cat being out now, Jaden McDaniels may be making like a near all-star level leap on that team. There's also, as I said, Julius Randle here, and there's guys like Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Naz Reid, who was sixth man of the year last year, is going to get a high volume of shots. So for DiVincenzo, New York, you're going to play a minimized role with Bridges being here. And Minnesota, you're going to be playing a minimized role with the options they already have and the guys that they're going to prioritize on the offensive end. So I see the disappointment for DiVincenzo. I understand it. You had this momentum. You were nearing that like 20 point per game range. I don't know if he would have ever got there. I think he would have maxed out at 18 points per game. But with his efficiency and his playing style, that's still very high value, right? I understand where he's coming from. I understand the disappointment. And like I said, it's just rough knowing that there were just some kind of internal dissatisfactions with certain guys on this Knicks roster, and the entire hype behind this team was the fact that they're going to have this insane chemistry with one another. And I'm going to kind of go back to the basketball conversation regarding this trade and the fit, and talking about who benefited the most from this trade. I had a perception on it last night that the Knicks, in my opinion, came out on top with the particular trade. And again, I don't like saying certain teams want a trade, because a trade is supposed to be mutually beneficial for both parties relative to their situation. But I think the Knicks came out on top. That was my perspective last night. I think Karl Anthony Towns fits what they're trying to do a lot more, right? With having more ball movement, less stagnation within the offense. Cat is a guy who can play a smaller role, who can be relegated, just floor stretching as a big, but there also can be nights where Cat takes over. I think he fits well with what the Knicks are trying to do. With Julius Randle, he can stagnate the offense just a bit, right? He can be a bit of a ball stopper. Yes, he is a good offensive force. He is definitely going to bring that to the table for the Timberwolves, but I don't know if Randle is a guy who can accept playing a smaller, non-shot creator type of role like Cat, right? Like, that's the type of situation. I think Julius Randle is a better shot creator than Karl Anthony Towns. If you go and look at the tape, look at the highlights, it's there. I like what he does in that particular area. But again, the Knicks need somebody who can play different roles, who can be role versatile. I defined what that meant on my last video. They can fit and wear many different hats within the offense. And Julius Randle can't really exist at a high level as like a role player sort of guy. If he's not shot creating, his value is minimal. I've seen different perspectives on it. People have critiqued Karl Anthony Towns. Somebody said that he does great against bad competition and kind of struggles against elite competition. I understand that particular perspective. I get it. But the fit with Cat here in New York makes a lot more sense with what they're trying to do with that offense than having Julius Randle, who can't really be relegated to any other role outside of just being a shot creator. The Knicks are going to give Mikal Bridges opportunities to shot create. They're going to give him those looks. He could do it at a solid volume like he showed last season. So Randle is going to have to take a back seat some nights. I don't know if he can do that just as well as Karl Anthony Towns, and I still hold on to that theory and opinion. So we'll see what ends up happening as the season gets started, especially for Minnesota. I'm interested to see how that offense looks between Julius Randle and Anthony Edwards in particular being their top two options on offense, but we'll see. But again, I like how the Knicks came out on top. Just rough seeing that there was some internal dissatisfaction for a team that was kind of hyped based around their chemistry with one another.